This is our second week of presenting this workshop. We had a very good turnout last week as well, and I think you're going to find this to be well worth your time, and we really appreciate your interest today. Just to give you a little background about Chapel Haven before we get rolling. So Chapel Haven is an award-winning, nationally known nonprofit, and we're based in Westville in a really nice section of New Haven. We also have a campus in Tucson, Arizona, and we help adults with social and developmental disabilities learn how to leave mom and dad's roost and begin living on their own with lots of support. And we've been around for almost 50 years now, and we have a tremendous track record of excellence. So, so check us out. And this slide just shows some of the core programs that we offer. So we have an Asperger's syndrome program. We also have our REACH program in New Haven for adults who have developmental disabilities, Down syndrome, intellectual disabilities, cerebral palsy. And our campus in Tucson, Chapel Haven West, also serves adults with high-functioning autism. And we teach everything from how to change the light bulbs in your apartment to how to make a friend, how to communicate in different settings in life, how to go to college, and how to move away from the protective wing of mom and dad and have your own vibrant adult life. Our next open house, and it's going to be virtual for right now just because of the pandemic, although Chapel Haven is open, but operating in a quarantine mode. But you can join us on Wednesday, June 17th at noon on Zoom, and Wednesday, July 22nd. And it's a great opportunity to meet other students and parents and learn about all the different programs that we offer. And a new thing for us, which I'm really excited to inform you about, is we have a new distance learning platform that's available to any adult. So you don't already have to be enrolled at Chapel Haven. And we have classes on a whole range of all of the services I just mentioned. So if you want to do some art online, or you want to be part of our Flora show, which is a show featuring the pet of our art director, which, believe it or not, is super popular. Or if you want to start learning about how to live independently and you only want to get started online, go to chapelhaven.org/chapel-haven online and you can sign up. And if you have any questions, here are some emails. We're going to be sending you this PowerPoint, so you'll be all set. And at this time now, I'm really excited to introduce our two presenters. They're both terrific. Andrew Arbo is a graduate of the Next Street and an autism advocate and a planner with, a facilitator with Planning Across the Spectrum. So he's going to start us out. And he's going to share some real personal insights from his own journey of learning how to drive. And then Brandon DeFore is the co-founder and CEO of the Next Street Driving School in Connecticut. And so take it away, Andrew.
Okay, that's better. I was just about to post on the chat about it, but yeah, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone, and I'm gonna get the screen share ready to go, and I'm excited to go over driving experiences. And later on will be a slide on Next Street, and Brandon DeFore, my wonderful friend, will be going over Next Street. So here it is. Here it is, Autism Pursuing Driving, and we'll go over all my personal experiences. And if anyone were to get any specific questions, post them on the chat box, and we'll be hopefully near the end. Will be a good amount of time to go over questions. And then during that time, there could be a few others that could probably answer them as well. So we're just gonna go from there. I would usually have my contact information, but last time was we kind of went elsewhere, so just gonna move forward. and I will go over what I'll do near the end. But basically, my question to just parents and to parents here that may be on here, and I'm gonna reword it different if it was anyone else, like a teenager or an adult that might be on here. For parents, have you thought about you teen driving? Or for like young adults, have you thought about driving? What was like obstacles? The reason I ask because there's a lot that kind of goes into it, and again, autism is very complex, and how because it affects executive functioning, a skill that a skill set and that happens to like be affected by autism, and it's important for driving because it affects anything judgment related in terms of skills, like for driving, knowing how to do a lane change, or going to trying to merge on the highway. A lot of those very specific focuses that is important to be able to drive safety. That there's a lot that kind of go into driving, and a lot of school and districts do the best they can, and they get so focused on autism that sometimes driving or transportation kind of misses. It kind of gets one of those topics that gets swept under the rug, but then no one's fault. And it was also general concern going on with this over here. Then, and it was also general concerns that I kind of looked up. I got a lot of this through this lovely report I got from New Jersey. They had a university where they went over transportation needs and barriers for adults on the autism spectrum, and these were one of the more general concerns they had. Safety concerns for children with ASD not being able to kind of use those transportation modes that aren't being in the parents' car or school buses, lack of affordable transportation options, lack of available options, and some of those options being reserved for older adults. And the two bottom ones, which I'm in downright agreement with in terms of what I've seen around, is the lack of travel building skills during like a child or a teenager's school time. Which again, schools have to juggle so much in the autism department, from the academics to the daily skills and the safety skills, and they have to try to navigate, get all those milestones done, all the milestones down, and it's like it comes one of those situations where someone tries to do so much that it affects all the others and may not hit all at the very end. It's kind of like one of those that may be really good at specific something, but they're kind of trying to juggle so many things, and depending on the district, it could work well or it could go elsewhere. And then the bottom one, which I've seen for a lot of people, that a lot of that gets excluded from the IEP. And thankfully, I'm seeing more of a trend of people being able to bring it up in the IEPs, and then it becomes an IEP goal, which is good. Like seriously, if anyone on here who has an IEP, for parents that are on here that may actually have luck with this on the IEP, but God bless you and take advantage to it, because services are not going to be around forever. And if you got in at the right time, go for it. Go for it. Like if you're in the high school or the transition program side of things, like you absolutely should take advantage of all that. For the first step you would absolutely must consider doing right before you decide to drive or there's a lot of anxiety. This is the format I created called Motivation. Move this over here to make it easier to read. But in this Motivation, I created this for parents, for all of you parents and everyone else that may be thinking about driving but may be anxious or not sure where to go. And like basically, I broke this down into 4 main bodies, which is job field, location, availability for help, and like inner feelings within a person. And I used myself as a case, so don't worry, I'm breaking this all down and then go from there. And again, this presentation will be emailed, and also my organization plan across the spectrum. I'll do a lot of blog posts on driving. I did one on motivation, and if you want like a more in-depth, like a worded version of all this. For the first main body, which is the job field, because where you work matters definitely with how you pursue with all this. And for the college I went to, originally I went to Manchester Community College, where I went as a disability specialist. And then in terms of transportation, it turned out to be a must because a lot of the positions really needed a lot of positions I saw really needed a license, and you'll see on the right corner is a mentoring position, a screenshot I got from Indeed, through Project Genesis, awesome organization. Anyone here that's native in Connecticut. But anyway, when you look down on the screenshot, you'll see that most you must have reliable transportation and a valid driver's license, and you must be willing to travel in a 30-mile radius. And it makes sense because you're taking people in the community or taking them out in the community afterwards. Like you'll be driving people all around the community so they can gain certain skills, and it makes sense, especially when you go into like other sort of career fields, like you like a therapist, like especially like you have to somehow do therapy at the person's home or outside the place. And it makes absolute sense. You actually need to drive over there to be able to do that. So I've like actually a lot of the transportation needs for this specific work field I'm in, it makes a lot of sense. And I got lucky in the beginning. I got lucky because I took buses during this time. I took buses back in 2018, right before I got my license, and I was hired from Prineville School, still over there. I was initially hired when I was doing the buses, and I almost made the mistake of mentioning my transportation situation right before the interviewing kind of happened, and I realized that was a bad idea. So don't do that. If you have like a specific transportation issue, and you're just about to apply for a job, be careful, or at least don't make a mistake I did. But I got super lucky. I was able to do my job coaching while I was still doing the bus, and as I got my license, it became a non-problem. So some places could be flexible how you handle transportation, but not often. For the second main body, location, because again, location absolutely matters. I'm in the Farmington area. Towns I'm nearby are West Harford County, basically. And the routes that I used are routes that are nearby is 4, 6, Route 10, major highways 84 and 9. But again, depends on where you go. And then bus routes, I used to go on 66, which kind of does a circle around to Hartford, but only on the weekdays from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. And they still don't do weekends. They still don't do weekend dates, and I still don't understand this. I still don't understand this to this day. And the bus came with specific problems. Like it worked when you're in the right areas, but if you need to do something else, or if you need to try to go anywhere else, it becomes harder. And that's not going to the other issues I ran into with buses. Like sometimes the buses would break down, or they could be really late, like 30 minutes late. And if you have to be somewhere, it's one of those situations where you need good luck to get by, and it sucks. Like I was basically using almost lost my patience right before I got my license. So it was a good time. It was a good thing I got my license when I did, because I was almost done with the buses. And to help me with those hard to get to areas, I used Ubers for a while. Always short trips because they can get horribly expensive. And for my town, it takes like 10 minutes, and it used to cost around 11 to 15 bucks. It could be different now because the state kind of passed a few bills about it. So take it as you will. And then paratransit, which is fixed bus routes, like it's just kind of like a fixed bus route system where you can go on these specific routes, and it takes a while of planning, and sometimes might take a good part of the day. But I've never really used it. And then Friends, most are all over the state, and there's a good reason I mentioned Friends. I will go over that in the fourth main body. All right, and for availability for services, these are just services that you might be around here or may not have, and to go over each one. BLS, which is Bureau of Rehabilitation Services. I know that's the old name, but I refuse to use the new name because I just think their current name over in Connecticut it's just not good, and I just prefer BLS a lot more as far as I'm concerned. But I can't really use those services, and mostly because to actually be able to use that, you would have to have a physical disability. And because, well, I don't have a physical disability, it didn't work out. And I don't recommend anyone trying to do something about that. But anyway, but in evaluation programs, I actually I almost had the option of using them, but I didn't, but I did not. I did not because I generally make things harder for myself, and I just use sheer determination to get through what I want. But they're an option in case if you're not sure if you want to see if that push. But I personally never used it, so take that as you will. And then IEPs, which is kind of like the school meetings that you do, or like you hold like the students plan for the next couple of school years. I don't think it was on my IEP. It might have bus train might have been on my IEP, but I don't think it was in my IEP most of the time. And then for special driving schools, which are some, Next Street being the most recent example, and the other one that I know of, it's down in Monroe, Connecticut. That's like an hour from here. And well, I couldn't exactly use that because no one would want to drive an hour just to go to driving school. And I can't convince my dad, who works every day as a construction landscaper type of guy who drives a truck around. I can't exactly convince him to have him drive me over there, especially after a busy work day. So that would not work. And then OT, occupational therapist. I could have had the option, but I didn't. Also, and then one of the most interesting things about OT is they can help out with mobility skills. So if you happen to have the right insurance, or if you know anyone who is an OT, you can actually talk to them and see what they can do to help you out. And Next Week does have a OT person over there. So if you're looking for something OT, consider contacting Next Week. And again, Next Week will be discussed later on in the presentation, which leads me to driving school. Again, Next Week is an option that I did use for a good part, and then Epic Driving School. Epic Driving School was in West Hartford, Connecticut, and I kind of used that as a home sketch I did from the mock-up test I did over there. All right, and finally, the fourth main body, eternal feelings. Because I'm not gonna say this, I'm gonna say the most obvious thing. Driving was hard. Like trying to navigate that, it was hard, and I kind of realized how lonely I actually felt. Like I didn't think I was lonely way back taking bus. I was like, sure, like I can still get around places, and then I got to saw how limited things really were. I just had that sense of this loneliness being away from most people and events because there was always something I wanted to do, but I missed out on a good amount of events way back in the day. So that was a feeling that went around, and it led to me just feel like I had to kind of had to fight off a war in myself mentally, trying to defeat a defeatist like mindset, tell me that I should stop driving. I'm crazy. Like had to fight off that sort of those thoughts. And what didn't help me was my own schedule went against me. That kind of created a cycle of sorts. Most people would tell you to practice on the weekdays, but I only practice on the weekends because I had less time. And even if I could have tried to put something in my weekdays, well, everyone in my household was busy, so there's just no way that was going to happen. And one of the worst fears I had was being rejected from my own field, because as all of you probably know from the beginning, I do a lot of work in the autism field, and if I were to get rejected just because of interpretation issues, that would not be good, especially dealing with that criff and have to kind of reorganize my life after that, after high school. So being rejected just because of one thing, and because I was about to graduate from MCC, like it was going to become a big problem if I didn't do anything. A lot of those playing factors, and the last one is a statistic from the same New Jersey report. 72 of both individuals and their parent they had to miss out on self-activities, either due to rain or lack of ride, which I think is honestly kind of true. Like I knew I probably had to force my dad to miss out any chores like he had to do, and I had to miss out I had to miss out on a few things. Either that or I might have to miss out on some money because, well, Ubers. like each one of us had to miss out on something just to be able to have to give that actual ride. So I think it's just an interesting statistic, but things do get better. And I came out with 4 strategies that I realized was helpful. And this is just an example. Like, none of you don't have to do this right away. You don't have to start highway driving right away. I'm just using it as an example. And like, start on local roads, parking mods, and go from there. But basically, a lot of the skills require multiple steps. So one thing that really helped me out was I broke it down to steps, which is actually a very common strategy for a lot of the autism population, especially for myself. Like in here, you could see that I broke it down specific steps because I guess if you try to tackle everything without those steps being broken, it's gonna be a lot more stress involving, a lot more anxiety involving. So I kind of broke it down. As you can see, step 1 was to get used to two-lane roads. Get two-lane roads. Just kind of keep driving in two-lane roads where I can be able to take a look at my side mirrors for other cars, and I can get used to that environment. And then the second step was to find a suitable highway route, or at least something I can work around it. And Route 8 was the perfect highway for a beginner driver, because was one part in the beginning part of Route 8, you just go in. Like, it isn't any merging, it isn't just an entrance ramp, you just go in. And it allows me to focus on stuff kind of by itself, like speed control being the third step, and then step 4 being get used to exit ramps, and then step 5 work on entrance ramps. And then as it goes on, I'd be able to go to step 6, which is dealing with freeway roads, and it led me to be able to try out different highways like 84, 291, and 9. So having the breakup in skills turned out to be really helpful for me. It allows me to take it one piece by piece, and I did this for myself, and I can confirm this works, and that this works really good. So again, just kind of expecting, like trying to break it down and know what's coming up as much as possible. Have those controllables along with the uncontrollables in driving, because it can go either way. And then strategy number 2, having reasons to drive, having that motivation. Like, it's good to have places in the community to go to. Like, if you want to go into a place to get like an iced coffee or two, good. That's a good reason. Like, that's a good excuse to drive. Like, go down to like a Starbucks and get something. Like, that's a good reason. Oh, like if you want to go to a video game store, if you want to get yourself the latest, get the most latest, highest video game out there, like one of the Marios or one of the Zeldas, that's a good reason. That's a good reason, and I don't care who says otherwise. I don't care who says otherwise, but having a good place is a really good reason to be able to get that drive, because we all have reasons to go to places, and in my case, because things are still kind of shut down currently because of coronavirus, no one is stopping me from getting iced coffee. So I have a reason to drive my car despite everything being closed down. That's a good reason. And jobs actually can be really helpful with this. Driving to your own workplace can make a difference. Like it can help with self-confidence. Like having that simple drive if it's nearby, hopefully not long distance, but being able to have those simple drives can really make a difference to self-confidence. Like, one of the jobs I worked with, along with my many jobs I do in my field, I work for Autism Families Connecticut, and I work for their Building on the Spectrum program. Basically a Lego program, and it's a good 30 to 40-minute drive through back roads, and there was a lot of things that that I got introduced to, like stop signs, two-lane roads, left turns, especially left turns. There was a lot of variety of a lot of controllables there as well, along with the uncontrollables. Because there are some interesting experiences. Some drivers doing some weird actions or not going on the proper lane. But that drive again helped me with self-confidence and just kind of building there, because that's kind of the go. The more times you drive, you kind of build your own self-confidence, but the second you feel confident and have a better idea what to do, it can make such a big difference. And even visiting friends' places can make a big difference. Like visiting like a friend's house if it's like 10 or 20 minutes away, does the same trick. You have a reason to see your friend and you want to drive to your friend's place. And by the time you get there, you drive, you feel good because you're able to get somewhere and be with your friend and you follow all the driving rules. So again, another way to boost your confidence, and that's really the big thing that's really important for driving. And then useful strategy number 3, having a supportive team. Because again, like sometimes it helps a lot of people doing it by their own, because I'm kind of now I'm kind of my own teacher. Right now, and I did have a support team, but I kind of transitioned over to myself being a more a teacher, being able to teach myself. But I had like a variety of team members, or at least ones that I know of. One being parents, siblings, so in case you have like a brother or sister, a friend, for obvious reasons, and then driving instructor if you're in a driving school. Like having like a support team really helps because it kind of gives you a lot of different perspectives, and they can kind of tell you, have a different opinion of what you could do better or how you're doing as like a novice driver. Like it really helps, and can be important because there's bound to be some conflicts. Because no, I don't want to shut down any parents, but I know it can be shaky. Like my own dad, like he was really nervous in the beginning because of the autism and the executive functioning aspects to go into it. And it took him a long time for him to get accepted to the idea of me driving, and it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun in the beginning in the parking lot. Even that, there were just kind of a couple of problems, different driver philosophies, but it got better, and more I start proving myself, it gets better. And eventually, my dad eventually it kind of worked out, and went through a good moment where it all paid off. I was in Las Vegas last year for a vacation, and a car almost hit my uncle, and luckily my uncle drove fast to avoid the car that just that ignored the red light and just decided to go for an intersection. Don't ever do that. If you see stop, just stop. If you see the stop sign or the red light, stop. Stop where you're at, and make sure you don't block the intersection at all. But afterwards, after that little scare, my dad was just talking about it, and he was saying people don't pay attention, and he said to me, "But you do," and that is the best feeling, one of the best feelings I've ever had, because after everything, hearing those words just made it all paid off. Because again, the beginning was not fun at all, and hearing that words is it really I felt so relieved that I was working out. And even now, last time I talked to my dad about highway driving, I drive on the highway currently. Even he said he doesn't seem to mind. We were just talking about in New Jersey and like how I might wait until the other year, but he said to me, and I'm just gonna put it in a summary. He said something that I could probably handle it. Probably not the exact wording, but close enough. But again, a lot of feelings of that. Yes.
Okay, so we're starting to get some questions and comments on the chat.
Claude, sorry. Go ahead.
So, a question from Peter, and maybe Brandon from next street can chime in here too. Do you have strategies to deal specifically with slow reaction time in a driving student? Let's see if Brandon can take that question.
So it's definitely worth working on if you have a therapy team with them in therapy. So often reaction time is a coordination issue. We actually have a reaction timing tool, but we use it as a testing tool, not as a therapy tool. So we can put you through a reaction time test to gauge how you're doing and see if you meet the minimum standard. And then based on how you do, we can give you some in-home therapies to do. But there isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It all depends on if it's a physical issue or a cognitive issue or a confidence issue. So based on what we see in a clinical evaluation, we can make better recommendations.
And then we have a really wonderful tip from Maurice. He says, daughter is autistic, licensed driver for 2 years.
Awesome.
In the beginning, we would often use cemetery property that has small winding roads to practice with parking lots before entering street driving. So that's a terrific tip.
Another good one.
Yeah. Carolyn says her daughter is 28. She really needs to drive. It is such an issue. We have told her to set up the lessons so it is on her. She doesn't do it. I want her to watch this in the recording. I think this will be hugely helpful. The concept of having purpose and being able to have reliable transportation is huge. We agree. Mobility is.
So
I know there's a lot of Chapel Haven students on this call and families too, and we know how important mobility is. John Nobiletti, I would like the convenience of having a car rather than relying on public transportation.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move
just
on.
to speak to that parent quickly that mentioned the asking the daughter to set the lessons up for herself. There are certainly there's a whole lot of value to helping your child do things and be independent. I will say that driving is a scary thing, and I think Andrew would agree. It requires a parent young adult partnership. And so just throwing it into their court might not set you up for success. But if you can create an environment where you can talk to your young adult about it and help them kind of build their confidence and build their willingness to do it, and maybe you helping them book the lessons with them would be a really good way to kind of start the process. So I would say this is one spot that you don't just want to kind of throw it, not to say throw it into their laps, but this is probably not one of the spots to really work on independence out of the gate, that it has to be built over time.
And and I just saw one question that was really good about how to deal with rules, with how to handle the stress of other drivers that don't follow the exact rules, because we all feel that. Because I've seen a lot of action during the times I've been driving from back 2018 to now, and sometimes, and I'm just gonna say it, sometimes sometimes there's just not much you can do about it. But the thing that you can do is learn from that. So don't be like that other driver. If you see someone who decides to go into the opposite lane to skip drivers, you can learn not to do that, because it's dangerous. God forbid if it became like a course, like almost becomes an accident. So being able to kind of learn from other drivers, learn what not to do. That hopefully worked pretty good, but hopefully I didn't talk to anyone else. Did anyone else have to say anything? Brandon, anyone?
No, I think there's some stuff coming up.
Comments and questions now. So I just wanted to see, Andrew, do you have a lot more to present, or how far along are you?
Let's see, I think I have like one more strategy, and then I'd be moving on to the permanent and the knowledge test, at least by knowledge, and also a final strategy, which is kind of broad, and I know it's maybe abstract, but it really helps. And props to anyone that plays video games and know what the screenshot is. Determination. Just kind of have that feeling that you can do this, and like wanting to prove the world wrong. And if you have that feeling, it makes a major difference on being motivated to drive. It makes a huge difference. So again,
if anybody knows the video game reference, they could put it in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, there's already one. Let's see. Yes, thank you.
Blake. Good job, Blake. Okay.
Thank you.
Hold on. I think we're going to pause in 6 minutes.
On the next street side, and
why don't you let Brandon talk about next street here?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Andrew, great job as always. Thank you so much. My name is Brandon Dufour. I'm the founder and CEO at The Next Street. We started about 11 years ago. We operate in 36 cities and towns across the state of Connecticut. We have the whole state covered. We go as far east as New London. We go as far west as Greenwich. We're up into Torrington and Enfield and Danbury and Hamden and everywhere in between. So no matter where you live, we have somewhere that can serve you. Andrew was proudly a student of ours. He never disclosed that he was on the autism spectrum while he was a student. And about a year ago, we hired an occupational therapist on our team that's a certified driving rehab specialist. So she's an occupational therapist with a credential that is specific to driving. And she works with new drivers and experienced drivers to just understand what their driving abilities are and how they can develop those. So when Andrew found out that she was on board, her name's Joan, he called our call center and somehow got them to forward him to me. He's persistent. And he just, he said, Brandon, I went through your program and you have a lot of opportunity to better serve the autism community. Okay, tell me more. So with Andrew's help, in collaboration with Joan and our master instructors, we've built out a driver's ed program that is specific to new drivers with ASD. And basically that program is just really about listening to you and your young adult new driver and hearing about where they are in their capabilities and in their desire to drive. So for some people, it's a giant question mark. I don't even know if this is possible. I'm just not sure if driving is for me. So for those people, we always recommend starting with a clinical assessment with Joan. It's about an 1.5 hour test in a clinical environment where we'll go through your cognitive abilities, excuse me, your physical abilities and your visual abilities. And at the end, we'll give you a conclusion, which might be you're good to go. And now you can leave with the confidence that you're able to drive. Or it may be that you need to do some therapy or you need to work on reaction time, as an example. So that's a starting point. If you know you're good, if you're like, look, I've got this, I know I'm ready to drive, I know I have the abilities, the next step is the permit test. And I think that's often a barrier, not because of the content of the test, but because the DMV, where you have to take the test, is full of distraction and stimulus and all kinds of things that could possibly go wrong. So we do some permit prep tutoring and we focus on the content, but we also spend a lot of time preparing you for what that test day is going to look like. Once you have your permit test, we get on to the classroom and the driving portion. Connecticut requires an 8-hour safe driving course. And I know there are people here from a lot of other states. Every state does this a little bit differently. So most of what Andrew and I have talked about today is accurate across the country, but there's going to be about 10% of nuance that'll be a little bit different in your state. So you just have to check into what your individual state rules are. But in Connecticut, it's a required 8-hour driving course. We recommend a bigger course. It's 30 hours of class. And for our students, we allow students to take each class session as many times as they need for no additional fee. So if your student goes in and just feels like he or she hasn't grasped all the information, you can come back and take that class again and can continue taking it until they feel really comfortable. That program also comes with 8 hours of private driving lessons. And what we've found is our ASD students are some of the most skilled drivers that we work with. They're rule followers. 25 miles an hour means 25 miles an hour. Complete stops means stop and count to 3. The challenges come when the unknown happens. It's when there's screeching brakes ahead or sirens coming from behind, or somebody else doesn't follow the rules and it creates a rage incident because they're upset that somebody is breaking the rules. And so we spend our time in the 8 hours of driving, sorry, got a phone call. Spend our time in the 8 hours of driving not only talking about the skills, but also going through those kind of unknowns and how to prepare for them and how to be ready for them. We spend time in the class talking about what happens if you get pulled over. How do you interact with a police officer? And Andrew, I think, talks a little bit later about the Blue Envelope program in Connecticut, which is great. There's now a program where you put everything you need for your car into an envelope. And when you hand that envelope to a police officer, in the event you're ever pulled over, it tells them that you're on the autism spectrum and it changes the way that they're going to interact with you. So Connecticut is finally catching up. They realize that this transportation is a major barrier for people with varying abilities, and they're getting there. We have a long way to go, but we're championing this with Andrew's leadership and our support. I think that you'll see even more improvements to access to transportation. So I'm here. I'm going to hang on the call through the end. If there's questions about driving school, driver's ed, state requirements, clinical assessments, I'm happy to answer those. But for now, I will kick it back to the better presenter, Andrew Arbor.
Oh, there it goes. Thank you, Brandon, for the awesome explanation. And I'm gonna probably, you've seen a lot of this for a while, and the last hit I want to give over is for next street family, for anyone in Connecticut, if you're under 21, you could do the world test with next street. Like it's an option you could do. And let's say you went to next street schools for a while, you can actually do the whole DMV test over there instead of the DMV. Just make sure you know only if you're under 21. Like I wish I was able to do that, but when I went over there in the Avon location, I was over 21, so it didn't work for me. So if you're under 21, take advantage of it. And again, with an autism program at long last, which is awesome. I'm excited to see what else I'll do with next street. But yeah, on DMV tips, kind of trimmed down. I'm gonna go permit test and then the world test itself. The Cheshire DMV only does permit test. There's a lot more of a quiet area. Like it's kind of sensory friendly, but maybe not all the way, not totally friendly. But it works for what it does. So if you want like a quiet place, you could just do the permit test. The Cheshire DMV is where to go. And then outside of next street's own tutoring, there's also online quizzes that you could use, like drivingtest.org that you can use. There's a link on here, and you'll be able to click on it when you get this presentation later on. And basically, it does like each date. Like there's like usually the tests have like 40 questions, and you could do all. And it's all multiple choice. And they go over what you do right, what you did wrong, and it's kind of like a good way. I just find it a good way to study. But again, everyone's completely different, so if you need tutoring like elsewhere, that's perfectly okay. Like the best thing, you just gotta do what's best for everyone. All right, and then the world test. World test, two major ones. I want to mention a few more. But for the world test, I'm gonna for drive around the DMV because there's a good chance the test will have you go around in a circle in the DMV area. That's the thing that I went through with the Verisfield DMV. I went through a circle, I went through the historic district, and I went on the major road, and I did my left turn, and I just did a circle all the way back to the DMV location during my world test. So if you're able to get some world experience beforehand, if you're able to just do that mock-up right before you do the test, it makes a huge difference. And again, it lets you know the unexpected. It lets you know about the controllable areas of driving that you can do. Like you can know the speed differences, you can know the layout of the roads. Like having that, being familiar with all that can also make a huge difference. And there's a big hint, as crushing as it is, watch YouTube videos of people going through the test. There's someone recorded the entire Webersfield DMV. Someone recorded the entire thing, 15 minutes of the whole test, and I watched it and it was amazing. You could say whatever you want to the person driving in the video, but it was an awesome like visual resource because again, everyone has different learnings and everyone handles a lot of autism stuff differently than others. And for someone that's like a visual that learns more visual by just watching like videos, it's an amazing reference. And again, it lets you know what to expect, which is a major part because the world test is stressful. Like it really, it's anxiety provoking for a lot of good reasons, especially in the DMVs. So being able to tackle that, they're just kind of knowing what's going to come up, again, makes a difference and makes you more self-confident. The next slide may not make a lot of sense, but bear with me no matter what. And no, I will not tell anyone about the video game that's coming up. So just bear with me. This was an unlikely source that helped me with the world test. Remembering my favorite game, one of my favorite games, Final Boss. No joke. Like, you've seen it as it is. And an action game with a living game that comes out of nowhere. And it was hard. It was like the hardest 8 minutes of my life in terms of video games, not real life. But it's one of those that if you fail, you have to redo the entire 8 minutes all over again. And the game kind of tricks you about being worried, but the boss requires you to be calm at the same time. So it's meant to be kind of a calm and to kind of a very action-like game. And thinking about this game helped me out because I was in the waiting room for the DMV because I did everything I needed to do. I did all my drives. I did all the training I could possibly do for parking. I can't do back in and save myself. I can't. But I did everything I needed to do, and this was a single moment I was waiting for. And I had to make this work because if I don't, my MERS permit would have been expired if I kept failing throughout. It would have expired last June of 2019. So this had to work. And I was pretty anxious, and once I saw my instructor and just kind of did some small talk, so it isn't too jarring, I went inside my car, and once I did my checks and went inside my car, all my worries just melted away, just became calmness as I was thinking about this video game experiences. Think about it, and I was able to be rational about everything, and I just responded only for direction-wise, like left or right, and I just followed everything the test did, and I came on top of it. So the moral of this story, of this nonsensical slide here, is that using special interests can help you out in unexpected ways, as long as they're not a distraction. I mean, if it becomes a distraction, you might need to do something about it, or use it for more creative spots. But again, special interests can be really awesome at times. But what's the end goal for all this? Because we're supposed to involve every possibility for people on the spectrum, and everyone is so different that some do need to learn how to drive. And the comments did a really good job of going into that a bit. And if it doesn't work, if choosing not to drive, it's a valid choice. Like, I totally get it. I know some people in my networks that don't really drive, and they do it because they were concerned about safety, and it makes sense. Again, driving can be hard for a lot of people, and transportation in general affects both social and work-related worlds. There's a lot that goes into this. One of the most important details for today is that there's no magic age to start driving. My coworker and my job coaching, I work as a job coach in one of the school systems in Connecticut. My coworker over there, the coworker didn't really learn how to drive until much later, and 40 or something like that. But so, like, old coworker, and said coworker decided to drive much later in life. And my coworker told me this when I was trying to go through the final steps. Again, it's really true. Like, if you need extra time, you need extra time. Like, there's not much to it. Like, if you need extra time, that's perfectly okay. And again, there's no guarantee that this may work, as a lot of things. But again, I'm gonna say in cliche terms, life is all about the struggle and yada yada. And what steps to take now if, let's say, your teen or young adult are still in school, and if you have a really young kids, I have something for you. If you're able to, through the school system, you can make it into an IEP goal and try to argue a case. It's possible to get that as an IEP goal. Schools may not be able to do much of that, and again, schools are kind of overstuffed with all the other autism aspects. But again, worth a try, and also they're supposed to give you resources. They're supposed to give you resources in your town or in the state of what you could do outside of schooling services, special ed services. And also, some high schools might have a driving program. Next Street has several of their programs in high schools. Like, Avon has its own driving school over there, and then Farmington High School and Miss Porter School in Farmington also has a program through Next Street. So it's possible. And if you're able to get your person in there as like an IEP goal, and you can have a para go and observe the person, the teen, learning all this knowledge about driving, and then act on that data afterwards, it could make it, you could get a lot done with that. It could make such a big difference, and the person might be able to make that informed decision. And again, you'll be having the person to advocate, which is the most important part of adult life, being able to advocate for your own needs, so self-advocacy. And also researching skills, and because if the high school option works and you have people around you, you can be able to ask anyone connected if they have those skills or not, being able to kind of gauge possibilities. And then for parents of younger kids, you could start practicing those executive functioning skills early. Like, bikes can be a really good one. Not for me. I could never do bikes. I'm more of a scooter person, but what can you do? But being able to start that skill early can make a difference, especially with the multitasking and be able to focus on different things at once.
So, Andrew, we have like 10 minutes left.
Almost at the end.
I do want to leave a few minutes for questions, so go ahead.
Okay, I'll go through these pretty quick. I kind of went through a big part. Start early on local roads and build a way. Oh, good. Starting early on local roads and just kind of build your way to highways. I already talked about the highways part, and again, start early. Parking lots. There was that awesome example of the cemetery. Thank you, whoever commented that. That is a great idea. And then learn how to use the car, learn how to check your car's fluids and tires, know how it works, and be able to adjust the sensory aspects that could be affecting to your person. I personally use video game soundtracks to help me with my focus. Like I listen to like a lot of video game stuff like Final Fantasy, Undertale, Deltarune, and then Near Automata. I use a lot of that music to help me focus. And just something that works for me. And again, working on driver communication skills, kind of knowing what kind of behaviors that might happen, and know what to do for each situation, especially especially when you're in an intersection of stop signs, knowing what your turn is, what's not your turn, and acting from there. And the most part, don't stay consistent. And I'll go over quick because I'm not much of a financial guy, but insurance, it's a good time. Let's say everything works out. It's a good time to review coverage and discounts. And again, you want to have that insurance piece go, and you have to review reliable coverages. The minimum is not enough. And you can also combine auto and home to work for savings, and also get an umbrella policy. A lot of this may be hard to take on. Next Week can help you with that. And my organization, Planning Across the Spectrum, is more than happy to help you all out on this. If anyone needs help with insurance, email me. Right at the very end of this presentation, I can put my email on there. I can get you connected to my financial advisor. If you just happen to be looking for insurance advice, so you're not alone. And there's a lot of resources out there that are awesome, and I'm more than happy to help you all out. And again, I must end this in a video game quote. And now is the time for Q&A, and read this awesome quote.
So Andrew, there were quite a few questions about Final Boss. Is it just that it's a video game you like, or does it really help you with learning to drive?
No, one of my special interests is just video games. I just thought about that particular moment because I struggled for that boss fight for like almost a year, like 8 months, I think 8 or 10 months, and I just thought about that moment. I kind of felt connected to the character that you play, going through that like final boss. Mm-hmm. Like one of those like immersions, and I just thought about like kind of what I felt during that, and I kind of applied that for driving. Something that helps me be able to calm that anxiety down. It's hard to explain. It's kind of like it's like what Life Anime talks about. It's a book and movie where the person in there uses Disney movies to help reconnect to the world or like make sense of the world. It's hard to explain. And it's an awesome movie, by the way.
That's Life Animated, right? It's a great movie, if anybody hasn't seen it.
And also, I'm unconventional. That's it.
Well, Andrew, you are a fabulous presenter. We're getting compliments on the chat, even as I'm speaking. Does anyone want to unmute and ask a question? We have a few more minutes.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna send my email out on the chat. So again, especially if any insurance questions.
Sure. Yep.
This is Matt with a question for Brandon. Brandon, do any of the Next Street locations or do all of the Next Street locations offer the clinical evaluation, or is it just those few that you listed on your slide?
No, we can do the clinical evaluation anywhere in normal circumstances. During COVID, she is trying really hard to stay at her headquarters, which is in Rocky Hill. But on a case-by-case basis, we're kind of making arrangements. So in a post-COVID world, we can do them anywhere.
Okay.
Right now, we're just trying to stay really conscious of health and safety.
Great, because we live closer to Westport or Norwalk, and it looks like you have Next Street locations at both of those places.
We do, yeah. We're in Westport and Norwalk. We're also in Stamford and Greenwich. So down that way, we could set something up likely in Westport. We would just need a few weeks' notice.
Okay, all right. So would we contact you for that? Is that you're the one that would coordinate that?
Yeah, start with me, and I'll probably put you in touch with Joan, and she'll take it from there. But it's just easiest to start with me.
And Catherine, do we have Brandon's email address?
Yeah, I put it in the chat.
Perfect. Can you put it in the chat again? Or Brandon, can you just read it to us?
I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it right now.
And hi, Matt.
Hey, Catherine.
Also, I did put in the chat, but just so y'all know, we will send out an email after this with the recording, and it'll have the emails in there as well as some other resources that Andrew wants to share with all of you.
And then
Terrific.
Peter had asked a few questions about executive functioning as it relates to driving. How can people practice that?
I actually kind of responded. I kind of responded directly to Peter, but
Oh,
bikes
okay.
can be good, and any activities that help out with reaction time. Any activities like those can make a good difference to be able to work on those. And also, OT can be really good. And Jonah of Next Street, I talked to her. I'm friends with her as well, and she's really good. I did some of those activities for a Next Street video. Like, it's a real deal, and it was pretty interesting having that perspective.
So,
And Joan on a conversational basis, if you don't need a full clinical assessment but just have specific questions, we'll be happy to talk to you for no charge. And I will put her direct phone number in the chat as well.
other questions? One of our students, John Nobiletti, says he knows about the 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock position on the steering wheel. What's that about?
Oh yeah, that's kind of like the way you kind of hold on to the steering wheel.
Like
That's kind of like how you hold
the
the specific ways. I hand it by both the left and the right ways, and it's kind of like the steering wheel is kind of like a clock.
Okay.
Think of it as a clock, and I know with certain ways you can do the wheel. The standard is you kind of hold both hands on the free o'clock side. You hold it on both ends, like the left and the right side. That's how I usually do it. But I know some people also drive with one hand or a different specific way.
We did have a question about resources in Tucson. We had this question last week. And
that's a good question.
Is to go to adead.org, or it's actually adead.net, I think. ADED is the association that oversees driving rehab specialists, and they have a search query on their website so that you can find somebody nearby. But in Tucson, what is her name? Her name is Jenny, and her company's name is... That's it, Driving to Independence. Jenny is outstanding. I work closely with her.
Really?
She's a great resource for us, yeah.
Okay.
So she's great.
Let's see. I know there were a bunch of Chapel Haven families. I want to say hi to Catherine. Hi, Catherine. And Carol. And John Nobiletti. Hi, John. And Bethany. Hi, Bethany. And Blake. Hi, Blake. And I think Adam was on here. Jody Perkins.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Matt Wyant.
Hi, Catherine. Hey, Andrew. Hey, Andrew, I got a quick question for you.
Cynthia Margolis, just saying hi. And I'm so delighted that all the other families tuned in as well.